Welcome to another interview in our FM Expert series. Today we've got with us Mark Bradshaw. Hi Mark, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. Thanks very much, Beth.
No, pleasure. Well, Mark is a director at iPWC and co-founder of CRUX Real Estate. And Mark, you're going to share with us your insight on the workplace, how it might need to change with what we're all going through at the moment, and some top tips to consider with somebody who's looking at a workplace change project. So yeah, interested to hear from you. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thanks very much for inviting me. It's quite an opportune time to be talking to your audience about workplace. There's a huge amount of data and insight that's being shared with us about how the workplace is going to change, whether or not we're going to be excited to continue with our working from home, remote working activities, or whether we are going to go back to the office. And my belief is we will go back to the office, but it will be a different kind of environment, and it will be for different reasons. It's difficult to predict what and when, and I know lots of facilities management partners and lots of workplace managers are struggling with some of the forecasting about how the workplace needs to be developed. And from our perspective and our research, we think that the workplace will shift a little bit away from being, as it was in the kind of late 90s and early 2000s, being predominantly task-based activity.
Yeah.
We saw a shift as we went into more agile-based working, where people would think about activity-based workplaces. So there'd be some focused work, but there'd also be maybe 30 to 40% of collaborative spaces. And the survey data that we've got so far is suggesting that there will still be a need for us to do some focused work in the office, because some of us find it difficult to work outside and concentrate. But predominantly the reason why the workforce is going to wish to come back to the workplace is to do much more around collaboration, much more around engagement with the colleagues, and also about social interaction, because some of us are really missing that human face-to-face interaction. I was out this morning with a client in Salford, and it was really nice to share a cup of coffee and have a conversation without having to worry about a Teams call or pressing links. So I think we're kind of missing that.
Yeah, definitely.
But you know, whether or not your organisation is going through a response immediately to COVID in terms of reintroducing people back to the workplace short or medium term, or whether you're thinking about the future, because clearly any investment now into your workplace, recognising the reduced demand perhaps for certain types of work settings, or increased demand for social, interactive, collaborative work settings, means a significant investment and a significant change.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be quite useful to share with your audience my 4 top tips for any workplace project. It's pretty keen to mention that I've been doing this for about 25 years now, and these are my top tips, but I'm afraid it might be a slightly longer call if I was to give away the entire process and secret. But so my top tips then for anybody listening is that first and foremost, anything you do in your workplace needs to be led by the business. Whilst I recognise that most of my clients are property and facilities management experts within our industry, we tend to respond to business need and change. And the most successful projects are those which are driven because there's a business need. So if COVID has identified opportunity or challenges that we need to overcome, then that should be the key reason why we're engaging in a workplace strategy. So we need to be clear on what the business vision is, the business purpose for this project, the key objectives, and those critical success factors. And the reason for that is it will underpin the strategy and the activity. It will be our key performance indicators to measure success at the end of the project. So that's my first key point.
Brilliant.
My second key point is workplace design. And I've jumped straight to workplace design. There are 2 more elements, and the 4th element is my most important, but we'll stick with workplace design for the moment. Don't be confused that trendy, in vogue workplaces make for great workplaces. Just because you have a hammock or a slide doesn't mean it's going to be effective or efficient. And I do like hammocks and slides, but in certain environments that would help the organisation to be effective and efficient. So the workplace needs to be designed around your needs and your activities. So look at what you do and how you work. Look at the type of activities that you undertake and create spaces that are going to support you. I find it amazing that factories and manufacturing plants have got this art of understanding process really, really clear, because it's a raw product. We bring raw products into our factories, we put it through machines, and we make biscuits or whatever else it might be in a really efficient, effective way. Yet we create workplaces that don't support the process of work, and it befuddles me, really befuddles me. So there's no one size fits all. Don't be intimidated by what the people have done, but I would suggest that people go and research other workplaces, and I would suggest that you talk to your peers.
Yeah.
You know, don't be afraid of stealing great ideas,
yes.
but more importantly, don't be afraid of asking people what they would do differently and what lessons they need to learn, because there's lots of really good information out there. We're always learning about what works for some companies and not for others. And lessons learned are going to help you to save so much time, effort, blood, sweat and tears.
Yeah, that just this is your expertise, not mine, but everything I would emphasize is exactly that point. Ask others what they would change, what they would do differently, what hasn't quite worked. It might look great, but if that desk, somebody said to me once, the desk, I think it was a kind of ad hoc meeting space, and they said the desk was too wide, and it meant that communication just didn't flow as well. So they said we'd have shaved about however many inches off it and just got a bit closer. And that kind of stuff is just invaluable. So, okay, that was tips 1 and 2. What about 3? Thanks, Mark.
So, well, number 3 then. So, quick one, leadership. So, if you're going to do any change across the workplace, so if you're going to introduce new behaviours, new etiquettes, new practices within the workplace, because it's not all about furniture and layout.
Yeah.
It needs to be led from the top, and it needs to be visible leadership. So, I know it's easy to say, and you know, it's sometimes do as I say, not as I do. However, if you're going to go through a change program and you've got a big workforce that's going to be embracing this change, leadership is so important. So having people who are sponsoring and championing the project from the very beginning is going to be key. The change impacts everybody, and the workplace will respond better if they observe great behaviour from the leadership team. So that is really important. But the most important element, and I think it's just worth of a bit of a conversation, is communication and engagement. When I first started out in workplace, I was in property and facilities management at the BBC, and we thought we knew everything. And we told our occupiers how they were going to use their space and what type of environment they would have and when they would have it. We quickly learned that actually it's a partnership between occupier and property and workplace and FM. And we created a workplace partner role. And that was my first exposure in sort of late 90s around the fact that that relationship is so important. So communication and engagement is at the heart of our strategy with all our clients, whatever that might entail. So it could be surveys, it could be physical workplace surveys and embracing sort of champions and ambassadors throughout that activity. It could be online surveys, asking people their opinion, polls. We could set blogs up. We have Yammer blogs and all sorts of instant messaging toolkits. But equally, we have workshops, we have interviews, we have town hall meetings, and we take people through the process. Key to that is co-design, and co-delivery delivers better results, and people embrace change and there'll be much more buy-in. So if there's anything that you can never underestimate, is the amount of engagement and communication that a successful project would need. So there are my 4 top tips.
I love that. And I think, you know, not just copying what other people have done, I think is critical. I think some people don't always understand how well they're going to work until you plant a few seeds and give them options. You know, I know for me, noise is a massive issue. I've got a fan here, and if I'm really trying to concentrate, I can't even have that on. Whereas I've got friends who can work with music playing and headphones in their ears. And for me, that would just, I wouldn't even be able to think. So every single person in that building is different, and something will work differently for them. And that's the challenge you've got, isn't it? Trying to design a space and create a space that's going to work for as many people as possible and give them the best environment to make the best of themselves, because we want people to be productive, don't we?
It is. Well, I think, you know, the key thing for us when we're looking at projects and we talk to our clients is, what we don't want to do is to force people to do anything that they don't wish to do. So we want to create spaces that attract people to go to them and wish to be there to do certain tasks. But also we want to encourage choice. Now your preference to do your task might be very different to somebody who's in exactly the same job and role as you, but they work in a different way. They can work in this kind of distracted environment with chit chat going on around, whereas you may choose to go and sit in one of the kind of more focused areas or the quiet areas or zones. And people know if you're in there to leave you alone, and we've dealt with, you know, white noise and acoustics. So it's about creating that choice and making it somewhere where you wish to be. You know, the office is not dead. It's just slightly different to how it was 6 months ago, 6 years ago, 60 years ago.
Yeah, and we're finding our feet, and I think it will be interesting if you and I have another conversation in 6 months or even in 3 months, just to see how things have changed, because that's the speed in which we're moving at the moment. So I'm conscious of time, and I want to say a huge thank you to you for your tips, and I think they're brilliant tips which people will find really useful. So Mark, thank you. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Cheers.